Hello, and welcome to the PHMC Historical Marker Nomination Series. I am Allie Davis, the Historical Marker Coordinator, and in this video we will go over some helpful tips for a successful marker nomination. Please be sure to check out PHMC's YouTube channel for our other marker videos to complete your understanding of the nomination process. For a successful nomination, we highly encourage applicants to reach out to marker staff with questions and complete a pre-application for feedback. As we go on, we will review the criteria and how to create a strong nomination. Any individual, organization, government, or public agency can nominate a person, place, event, or innovation of statewide or national historical significance. There are 3 important dates to know for each part of the process. Please mark them on your calendar to ensure you do not miss them. Marker staff will not review any part of the nomination that is not submitted by these deadlines. These dates ensure that marker staff have enough time to review and provide feedback to nominators to make the necessary changes before the final deadline. The pre-application is due January 15th. Draft nominations for preliminary feedback are due February 15th. The final deadline for marker nominations is April 1st. Any nominations submitted on April 2nd or later will not be included in the review and instead will be held the following cycle. PHMC's historical markers capture the stories of people, places, events, and innovations that have affected the lives of Pennsylvanians over the centuries. For those of you who have never submitted a nomination or written any kind of historical analysis, these questions will help you describe the significance of the subject. What was the cause and effect? What changes or consequences occurred and why? How did the subject influence the course of events on a statewide or national level? What and how widespread was the impact on a statewide or national level? What was the subject's lasting influence in history? What role did the subject play in the cultural, societal, or political spheres of its time? What factors contributed to the subject's development? All subjects must meet the marker criteria. Now we'll dive further into each kind of subject to consider the most appropriate information expected in the nomination. When nominating an individual for a marker, make sure they have been deceased for at least 5 years. Living persons will not be approved for a marker with the exception of Pennsylvania governors. Demonstrate that the individual has achieved at least statewide recognition and are not just regionally or locally known. They must have spent their formative years in the Commonwealth or retained a strong connection to Pennsylvania. Sometimes this is a gray area, but the nomination must make the case that the individual got their start in Pennsylvania, was shaped here, or their time spent here had an impact on the person's life, career, or achievement. If a single achievement can be clarified, it may be for a better title than the subject of the person for the marker. Let's look at 2 recent markers of good people that have been approved. Dr. Oscar James Cooper was an African American physician in Philadelphia. His achievements included co-founding the first fraternal organization at a historically Black college or university and co-founded the Pyramid Club in Philadelphia. He was at Howard University in D.C. when he founded the fraternity, but it started a foundation for many other HBCUs to start their own. He maintained his connection to Pennsylvania, not just as a practicing physician, but also through his contributions to the Pyramid Club, an African American art and culture venue that hosted many popular and famous African American artists, musicians, and writers. Another good example is Ruth McGinnis, inductee in the Billiard Congress of America Hall of Fame. At a time when billiards was a popular and serious pastime that was exclusively male, when women were thought to lack the physical and mental aptitude for the sport, McGinnis made a name for herself, beating out just about every man she played against. She got her start playing pool at her father's barber shop in Honesdale, where he kept a few pool tables for customers. Any site or building being nominated needs to be more than just an example of a particular architectural style. Consider why the location is important to the state or nation. Is it connected to a social movement or significant event? If the connection to an individual or event is more important than the location itself, then it may be more appropriate to focus the nomination on the individual or event and place the marker at this location. It's very important to note that any sites owned by PHMC are automatically approved. PHMC only owns and maintains sites considered to be highly significant to all Pennsylvanians and therefore automatically meets the marker criteria. However, places listed in the National Register or as World Heritage Sites may not meet the marker criteria as there is a separate set of criteria for those listings. For example, the National Register, under Section 8 in the application, notes that the level of significance can be local, regional, or national. Double check this section in the National Register application and submit it with your marker application. Examples of places that do meet criteria: the Sylvania Electric Products and Emporium. It produced a significant amount of components necessary for weaponry used by Allied troops in World War II, including a particular fuse used for bombs. The high production was the result of the primarily women workforce who flocked to Emporium to support the war efforts, earning the town the nickname Girls Town, USA. The other is Parker's Landing Petroglyphs. It provides a significant record of Native American legends and beliefs over thousands of years. They vary in number and design and illustrate nuances in beliefs and the development of the cultures throughout the years. To nominate an event, explain how it fits into the larger social, political, or economic context of its time. Explain what led up to the event and how it impacted events after it. Perhaps it was significant because of who was involved and why. Two events that meet the marker criteria are the first World Series and the Black Student Walkouts of 1967. The first World Series was held in Pittsburgh and was a voluntary event between two rival clubs that reflected a truce to infighting and player trades. This was the National and American Leagues. It resulted in the formal establishment of America's Pastime World Series in 1905. The Black Student Walkouts was a youth-led walkout from Philadelphia schools in 1967, one of the largest, and it demanded cultural inclusive education in public schools during the civil rights movement. The inclusion of ethnic studies wasn't mandated until 2005, with Philadelphia being the first school district to do so. Innovations should have a greater impact than the people or person involved. Sometimes the innovation is the best angle to take because it was created in Pennsylvania, and the people involved may have had a small connection to Pennsylvania otherwise. Demonstrate how the innovation changed life, society, or industry, how it was different from similar ideas or innovations of its time or before it, and whether it led to any other innovations. These innovations can range from medical or scientific inventions to even new food varieties. For example, the York Imperial apple was propagated by Jonathan Jessup at his nursery in York. He grafted trees to produce a long-lasting apple variety, perfect as an all-purpose apple that grows well in stony soil. To this day, the York Imperial is still grown commercially, specifically for applesauce and apple juice for such brands as Musselman's and Lucky Leaf. It has been continuously one of the top 10 best-selling apple varieties for over 200 years. The Westinghouse atom smasher in Allegheny County was instrumental in the development in practical applications of nuclear science for energy production. In particular, it was used in 1940 to discover the photofission of uranium and thorium and was most cited for certain nuclear physics measurements. It marked the beginning of nuclear research for civilian applications. Sometimes it's tricky to determine what angle to take with your nomination. Perhaps you're struggling with your research. Marker staff are here to provide you with feedback and guidance so you can craft a strong nomination. We encourage nominators to complete a pre-application so you can receive feedback before you put in the work with the nomination. We can help you hone the significance, recommend other research, and connect you with groups or organizations that may provide further assistance. Staff can also provide feedback on a completed draft, which must be submitted by February 15th. We will review the draft for completeness and offer suggestions for improvements. However, marker staff will only review a draft once, so be sure to provide as complete a draft as possible with any questions or concerns that you may have. We strongly encourage that individual nominators work with a historical or cultural organization that can offer relevant research, guidance, and verification of research. It may be your local or county historical society, a library with specialized information, a college or university, or another cultural group. We have received nominations from folks who have worked with groups like Poles in America Foundation, Industrial Workers of the World Union, the Pennsylvania Railroad Museum, and various literary societies. It's important to watch out for some common pitfalls in your application. We have sadly seen some potential nominations rejected because they did not include all the required elements, like not providing the documentation and research. All nominations must include excerpts from several primary and secondary sources. While news articles can serve as documentation, especially those contemporary to the marker subject, they should not be solely relied upon. Journal articles and histories or biographies of the subject are good sources. Letters of support from historians with expertise in the subject matter can be very persuasive. Every year we receive nominations for subjects that have historical significance but do not rise to a statewide or national level. A nominator must carefully consider how far the potential subject's impact reached. Sometimes the connection to PA is simply not strong enough. A nomination is less likely to be approved if it is too similar to other markers or is already recognized with another kind of monument or memorial. Be sure to use the marker search on our website to see if there already is a marker dedicated to your proposed topic. Sometimes a particular subject just doesn't make for a good PHMC marker. All people who served in our military deserve respect and recognition. The PHMC marker program is generally not that appropriate method. We couldn't possibly mark them all. Even the first to be killed or the longest serving at a post would generally not be approved for a PHMC marker. Those that do have markers are generally military leaders whose strategies or military techniques made a significant impact on a particular battle or war. One example is for General Louis Lemnitzer, who played a role in the creation of NATO. Also, while all Pennsylvania governors are approved for a marker upon submission of a complete nomination, other political figures are not necessarily relevant for the marker program. Approvals are generally only possible if the person was the sole author or sponsor of landmark legislation that impacted the entire state or nation, or was a model for subsequent legislation in other states across the nation. Again, National Register properties may not meet the statewide significance threshold, so check Section 8 of the form before following through. If the subject was also the first of a type, for example, the first church of a particular religious denomination, or the first facility to produce a product, or the first chapter of a significant group, it would have a good chance of approval if other criteria are also met. So, related to this, subjects that are too specific or very difficult to verify are also not approved. Avoid using qualifiers like first, oldest, longest living. Sometimes these qualifiers are disproved as more information is uncovered by researchers in the future. Again, read and understand the approval criteria before starting your application. This could save you a lot of time and effort. While improvements and resubmitting a denied application could result in success, there are many reviewed each year that just do not meet the criteria, and no matter how many revisions or changes or additional documentation will change that result. If you have questions about a subject, we highly stress submitting the pre-application. Sometimes it is very apparent to marker staff that the subject may not be approved, and there's no need to submit a draft to get your answer. While staff do not vote in the markers, we generally have a feel for nominations that have a good chance of approval. Everyone is welcome to submit a nomination, whatever the subject. Staff will be candid with you, however, about whether subjects are unlikely to be approved to try and save nominators time and aggravation. Anyone can erect their own local markers, though. Staff can provide a list of marker manufacturers, and you can decide which one best meets your needs. The only prohibitions PHMC requests is that local markers use a different color scheme than the state's blue and yellow lettering to distinguish it and to avoid trademark issues. Please also do not use the state coat of arms or the signature key and bars design element. It's also recommended that local markers have the name of the individual or organization responsible for erecting them on the marker so that the appropriate parties can be notified if the marker is damaged or requires maintenance or relocation. Here is the expected timeline for the entire process. To reinforce, January 15th is the pre-application deadline, and February 15th is the draft deadline for preliminary review. April 1st is the final due date. In April, May, and June, the PHMC Staff Review Committee and the Marker Review Panel will evaluate each application. The panel will meet in late June to decide on their recommendations for the Commission. The Commission will receive the recommendations and make their votes at their September meeting. Nominators will be notified in October of the results, and plans can begin in November for dedications. It is highly unlikely that any dedication will take place before 2026. PHMC requires that markers be dedicated within 2 years of approval and installed in an area that will be seen by many people. If you'd like to learn more about the marker program, you can check out our website, pahistoricalmarkers.com. You can also check our other videos on the historical marker series on PHMC's YouTube channel. To stay connected with the SHPO for updates and information about all our programs, sign up for our blog and newsletters. For more information, please contact Allie Davis, that's me, at ra-phmarkers@pa.gov. Please take a look at our next video in the series for more information. Thank you.